Hey everyone, today we're going to cover two literary devices, and the first one is, poetic devices, and the first one is allusions. An allusion is a reference to something in poetry. So the poetry is written and there's something in there that looks familiar to you, that's called an allusion. That thing must be well known and identified by a large group of people, and readers who are unfamiliar with the allusion used in the text will not understand the intended meaning of the author or speaker. So what this means is that there's a little hint given to something else inside of the poem, and it makes you think. A lot of our allusions are to the Bible, nursery rhymes, myths, famous fictional or historical characters, and literature. Let's see what this means, because I know at this point you're probably still a little bit confused about allusions. Allusions are like when you call somebody a Judas. Now, if you are Catholic or you practice Catholicism or Christianity, you know that Judas betrayed Jesus. He told the Roman guards where to find him so that Jesus could be captured. So when you refer to somebody as a Judas, that means that they've betrayed you or somebody else. So that's an allusion, a famous allusion. Most people know, whether they practice Christianity or Catholicism or not, most people know who Judas is and that he represents betrayal. So it's easy to see there that an allusion is a type of metaphor. You mention one thing that's really familiar to a lot of people so that they can make the connection to those traits and then apply them to the person or setting within. You just give a hint to another piece of literature or something in history or a myth or the Bible. Now, you can take allusions to a whole nother level. When you do one comparison and you just say, that your character's name is Doodle, that's an allusion to the Scarlet Ibis and Doodle and the Scarlet Ibis. But when you write a whole story that is one big allusion to, say, a huge historical event, for example, then you're writing an allegory. And an allegory is a story in which every single setting, character, the theme, all is similar to something that's actually already occurred. For example, Animal Farm, written by George Orwell, is an allegory of communism. So every single character and setting and incident in Animal Farm can be compared in some way to communism, and that's what makes it an allegory. So that's allusions. Let's take a look at some famous ones. I was surprised that his nose was not growing like Pinocchio's. We all know Pinocchio's nose grows when he tells a lie. So when you call somebody a Pinocchio, that's an allusion to Pinocchio. The Taylor Swift love song, that you were Romeo, you were throwing pebbles, and my daddy said stay away from Juliet. Famous Shakespeare play, Romeo and Juliet, there's your allusion to it. We understand that song because we know the famous play by Shakespeare. When someone wants to discuss one's weak point, he, she will refer to it as her Achilles heel. Very cool story, mythology. Achilles' mother was given bad news that it was foretold that Achilles would be killed in battle by an arrow when he was older. So in order to protect Achilles, she held him in a magic river that would coat him and protect him for the rest of his life. He could never be pierced by an arrow. But she was holding his little ankle. So the little ankle never got into the water, so he was killed by being shot in his ankle. And that's why it's called an Achilles heel. It was the only weak part on his body. This place is like a Garden of Eden. Obviously, we all know the reference to Garden of Eden. And Senator Obama's call to ask not just what our government can do for us, but what we can do for ourselves. Ask not what you can do for your country. JFK speech. So all of these are very famous, but you see one's famous in mythology, one is fairy tales, one is biblical, one is historical, one is drama. And then, of course, Christy didn't like to spend money. She was no Scrooge, but she seldom purchased anything except the bare necessities. There's our literary allusion to a character in literature. So again, you just mention something else within a poem or a story, and you can draw connections to that thing that's already familiar to us. That's an allusion. That takes us to symbolism. So when you look at these symbols that I'm about to show you, what comes to mind? We have an American flag. It is what it is. It's a flag, but it stands for so much more. How about an engagement ring? It's a ring. It is what it is. You can hold it in your hand, but it stands for so much more. And we have a black cat. It's a cat. You can pick it up and cuddle it and love it, but it stands for so much more. So when you see American flag, you think freedom. When you see an engagement ring, you think love and commitment. When you see a black cat, you think bad luck. That's because they're symbolic of those things. So it represents something other than itself. It is what it is, but it has a deeper meaning, and that helps and making that connection helps the reader to better understand the deeper meaning. Now you've already done this. Let's take a look again at something familiar to us. There's a coffin, there's a go-kart. Those things we saw in the Scarlet Ibis, and they represented phases of Doodle's progress. When he survived, the coffin that symbolized his death was put into the barn. When he was able to walk, that go-kart that symbolized his inability to get around like a normal person was put into the barn. So there's your symbolism from the Scarlet Ibis. It is a coffin and it is a go-kart, but it represents so much more. Now, the cool thing about symbols is they come in many shapes and forms, and this is just something you're going to have to become familiar with. The colors symbolize something else. Red, immoral, blood, passion, danger. So when you see the color red repeated over and over, you can start to imagine that it's some type of symbolic meaning. Black. Okay, all of these colors mean something. Green means inexperience, hope, new life. Pink is innocence. When we see the color purple, we know it's royalty or bruising or pain. Brown is the color of earth and represents humility and poverty, and white is innocent life, light, purity, or enlightenment. Now, here's the really cool thing, and I'm going to give you a handout with all of these. Metals and gems all represent something beyond themselves as well. They're all symbolic of something. So if a poet mentions gold in a poem, you can imagine it has something to do with being perfect. It's the perfect metal. Okay, we also have miscellaneous objects. When water is used in a poem, it usually washes away guilt, so it's regeneration. River, moon. And again, I'll share all of these with you in a handout so you don't have to learn them right now. Every phase of nature represents something different. Summer is maturity and knowledge. Spring is birth and new beginning. Think about what happens in spring. Everything comes back to life. Winter is death. Think about what happens in winter. So it's symbolic of death, sleep, and hibernation. And we saw that in one of the poems we've already read. All kinds of animals stand for all kinds of things, and weather and time even stands for a bunch of different things. So when a poet brings these things into their poem, they're not doing it accidentally. All of these things are symbolic of something else, so look beyond the deeper meaning. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief, so dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. A ton of allusion and symbolism in here. Just take a quick look at it. Just take it in. What are all the things you see that we just went over in today's video? Think about it. It's full of it. We're going to look at this poem in a little more detail later in the week, but right now, let's get quizzical. Go take your quiz. I'll see y'all in class.